Wrestling fans, what's going on? You are now joined the crew from WrestlingRumors.net for Wrestling Warm-Up. It's our pre-show we do every single Monday night for you guys. And, of course, before every single pay-per-view on Sunday nights, which means in 2 weeks we will have this show at 6 p.m., not 6:30 p.m., to preview the Royal Rumble. We're going to get to talking about the Royal Rumble. We're going to get to talking about Raw tonight. But first and foremost, let's talk about this, as it's the hottest news today. TMZ jumped on the story early this morning, and then, of course, WWE had to scramble to try to get the story out first. They even had one of their little surprise little news blurbs on WWE Network saying that the Macho Man Randy Savage is expected to be announced as the first inductee to the 2015 Hall of Fame, which is absolutely amazing. We have Chris Walter here with us. We have Alex Bisong here with us. We're going to talk about the Macho Man, finally going into the annals of WWE history, which we waited for ever, it seemed like, for this to happen. Walter, what do you think, man? You were reporting about this today on WrestlingRumors.net. The Macho Man, cream of the crop, finally going into the Hall of Fame. What do you think?
Oh yeah, dig it, brother, yeah. That's as good as I can get. Sorry, but yeah, I'm happy that Savage is finally getting in. We've known for a while now the problems between the Powerful family and World Wrestling Entertainment, and we were hoping that one of these days there would be some sort of reconciliation to the point where Savage would get into the WWE Hall of Fame. He's obviously one of the biggest names out there that isn't in it yet. So for him to be the headlining act of the 2015 class, I mean, I don't care who else they add to this list. No one is going to be bigger than Savage, so I'm happy to see him get in. I'm not surprised either that Hogan is the likely candidate to induct him. That hasn't been officially confirmed, but on the WWE Network, they did say that Hogan was likely going to do it, so that should be cool as well. So I'm happy. I can't wait to see, I mean, I assume Lanny or one of the members of the family will be up there to accept the honor on Savage's behalf, obviously. Right, so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a huge deal.
I would assume it's his brother Lanny and his mother if they can get her on the stage. If you saw the new Randy Savage DVD, then the interviews with his mother and Lanny were extremely emotional and very heartfelt. And I would assume that it would be both of them that would accept this honor. At least she'd be in the crowd. B-Song, what do you think, man? Cream of the crop.
Yeah. I'm definitely a lot younger, so I wasn't blessed to see Savage, but it's about time. It's always better late than never. It should be kind of a cool thing to have Hogan up there to, speak on his behalf, induct him, and then you have, obviously, Lanny Poffin, like you said, possibly his mother come up to accept the honor. It's just very good when you can follow up a class that was headlined by Ultimate Warrior, another case where WWE made amends with someone that, that they felt they wronged and that Warrior felt that he was wronged. It's nice to make amends once again. It should be a very good headlining talent. The headline, which should be another great class of WWE Hall of Fame inductees.
Yeah, we'll see. We know that Pat Patterson's is trying his hardest to get the crippler, Ray Stevens, not funny man, Southern make parody videos Ray Stevens, but Ray the Crippler Stevens. Who Patterson tagged with and was a Smash Mouth wrestler, and it was very popular on the West Coast, especially in the San Francisco area. He's trying to get him into the Hall of Fame this year as well, and that would mean we have 2 posthumous inductions that would be happening. Of course, Macho Man.
Maybe 3 if we get another crippler in there.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't even know who that is. You're Voldemort? You're talking about the man who should not be named? I did like the fact that on the latest Monday Night War, they actually included Benoit and actually allowed his name to even remain on in a portion of that. But we do have some, Bad News Burke in the chat rooms asking, WWE needs to police their stuff better if TMZ is getting a hold of this and putting it out there early. I fully believe that the WWE leaked this earlier this morning.
Yeah.
So there's a story to go on and get people to watch Raw. The ratings and viewership has been down so bad. Every single week it gets worse. It went up a little bit this week with the return to the Authority during the first hour, but, dude, I mean, the rest of the show was just awful. And this past Monday night was atrocious. And we got on here last week super excited because the 29th was actually a decent episode, and it actually gave us a little bit of promise moving into the Road to WrestleMania season. But if anything is like what it was last week tonight, I will be watching the college national championship game more than Raw. You won't see a lot of tweeting on the Wrestle Rumors account. I'm sorry. Last week was just so absolutely awful that I don't know if I could sit through 3 hours of that again this week. And that sucks that we're having to sit here and say this. Like, it's getting that bad. You bring back the Authority, you nullify everything that happened in the fall, which they usually wind up doing in some way, shape, or form anyway. But everything that happened with the Survivor Series, everything that happened with Dolph and Sting and everything. I mean, you got Triple H alluding to Sting, that goofball Sting, that goof Sting. I mean, why? Like, what's the point? How are they going to bring these guys back if it's not through Vince or somebody else this week? They originally promoted that John Cena was going to have to bring back at least one of these guys, and who's going to choose? Like, who is he going to choose, and how is that going to alienate the other two? But now they're not promoting that at all for tonight, so I have no idea what they're going to do. They obviously have no idea what they're going to do, and it makes for the most bogus, like an inconsistent, unlogical storyline that they're running with for Mania that I've ever seen, and it's bad. It's really, really bad, and they're trying to book Roman Reigns to be huge to go against Lesnar at WrestleMania. I don't see them changing that at all yet. I'm at a loss, and I know that the chat room is still wanting to talk about Savage, so we'll continue to talk about Savage before we get out of that mode and start talking about Raw even more. But I just had to start talking about how bad it was last week. People are asking about the Hogan thing. I want to know your thoughts on this, Walter. You have a little bit more experience. You are a little older than Alex Bisong is. You may remember some of this stuff. I have been watching wrestling since the early 90s. I was a big Macho Man mark. I was a big Hogan mark in the early 90s, and I watched both of their transitions from, like, when I started watching Raw, when it started in 93, obviously Macho Man was a commentator. He was not wrestling at that point. And then they moved him into a couple more matches, and then he was gone. And I remember watching them come over to WCW, and it's one of the reasons that I started watching WCW. Always been a Macho Man fan. Always looked forward to seeing him go into the Hall of Fame. Now, but also in 2003 and in 2004, when stuff started going down on the internet, when everybody started recording videos and all these different things on YouTube, there was such beef between the Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan, and I don't remember if anybody else knows this, but dude, there's a full rap album that Macho Man Randy Savage did about Hulk Hogan and how much he feels like he's a douchebag, and it's like every song on that album is like a knock at other wrestlers, especially Hogan, and I never heard or saw anything outside of, I mean, even the Ultimate Warrior put a YouTube video up in like 2011 or 2012 talking about how much when Savage died in 2011, I guess it was 2011 because Warrior posted the video right afterwards when Hogan said that he had talked to Savage and made amends, and Warrior flat out told, I'm pretty sure that Warrior video is still on YouTube somewhere, where he's just calling out Hulk Hogan and saying, you're a lying bastard, like, you should never say anything like this, like, I knew Randy personally, you did not make amends. You are not friends with the Macho Man Randy Savage when he died, and now they're talking about Hulk Hogan's going to induct him into the Hall of Fame. I know how Savage going into the Hall of Fame with Hogan inducting him looks to WWE, but for fans that's been following this forever, so weird and so out of character. Like isn't Ricky the Dragon Steamboat more of a? And I like the fact that Ed posted that in the chat room. I thought the same thing earlier when the whole rumor of Hogan inducting him came out. Steamboat and Savage had one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my lifetime. It was one of the greatest matches to ever hit a WrestleMania stage. It set the bar for every other wrestler that came on the card ever on a WrestleMania stage, and that is at WrestleMania 3. If you have never watched Savage versus Steamboat, go back. It is absolutely one of the greatest matches of all time. You can see that on the network or YouTube, I don't care where. But the fact that Steamboat, who had amazing matches with him their entire careers, I don't know why Steamboat's not even in the running to induct him into the Hall of Fame. But I don't know if any of you guys have heard any of the videos or conversations between Savage about Hogan and about Warrior, Warrior about Hogan and Savage. Like, what's your guys' thoughts on this whole Hogan maybe inducting him thing?
I know Savage, like I read like after Savage's death, kind of those things of how they were kind of at odds with each other leading up to his death in May of 2011. But I think it was something where I personally wouldn't want Hogan to induct him. I just think he's probably not the right guy, but I understand why WWE does that because he's a huge name. Savage is obviously the headliner. You're not going to have someone lesser like Ricky Steamboat induct him, even though that might be what Savage wants. However, if what I think they would have done, unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but if Ultimate Warrior were still alive today, you could easily have had him induct Savage, seeing that he was inducted the year before, but unfortunately they cannot do that.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you, B-Song. I'm actually kind of surprised that they would want Hogan in that spot, but I mean, when you look back in the history of the company, I mean, Hogan and Savage's rivalry, as well as their relationship as the Mega Powers, which was huge back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it might have been too sweet for them, NWO, of course, for them to pass up on. So, but I would have preferred to see maybe a family member induct him, but I guess Lanny and his mother will be accepting on his behalf.
Right.
A good point with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I mean, most of the stories that have come out today about Savage's induction have mentioned the fact that one of the greatest matches of all time was Steamboat and Savage. And when you look at a pay-per-view like WrestleMania 3, the biggest indoor attendance of all time, that was main evented by Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, and years later, all we're talking about is that Intercontinental title match between Steamboat and Savage. I think that's a testament to both guys, and it would have been perfect to see Steamboat in that spot. Another name that I could have seen doing it, it's obviously not going to happen now, but maybe CM Punk if he were still around. We all know how much respect he had for Savage. He always did the little euphemisms. He brought back the elbow drop as a sign for Savage as well, so that would have been cool. But I mean, I'm not as in know in terms of what the falling out was between Savage and Hogan, but the fact that there's any animosity there kind of puts an asterisk on Hogan doing this. So we'll see how it goes, but I think this has WWE's fingerprints all over it.
Oh yeah, if Hogan inducts him, it's definitely Vince trying to capitalize on the fact that without Hogan giving Macho Man that big rub in the main event spot and their relationship there in the WWE for a while, I mean, he would have been looked at like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. He would have stayed in that Intercontinental upper mid card tier for a while. The fans push that in there, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but if it happens, it happens, and I guess the fans in the arena will have to make the decision to say something or not, kind of thing. Because I just don't know how they're going to do that and it work out as far as with Lanny and his mother if there was still animosity when he died. But the good news is, for all the IWCers who have complained about it for years, dude, the Macho Man Randy Savage is finally taking his rightful place in the WWE Hall of Fame. Which means whenever they build a physical Hall of Fame, you're going to get to see some sweet Randy Savage merch and memorabilia in that spot. So I'm excited. Obviously, it sucks when someone's already passed and they can't get their ring, they can't get their acknowledgement there in person. But a really good thing that he's going in, and this brings up questions a lot. I've seen a lot of things on Twitter today, like, should Miss Elizabeth go in with him? No, I don't think Miss Elizabeth should go in right now. Not on the same card. Will she go in someday? Probably. But it won't be right now. And Lex Luger will not be inducting her. So if you know that story, you know that story. That's not going to happen. But that's where we are. That's what's happening. Macho Man Randy Savage is going into Hall of Fame. Kudos, awesome. And now we're going to start talking about Raw. So tonight, what's on the docket is we're gonna get some more Rumble entrants. People are gonna obviously say that they're in the Royal Rumble. I would love to see a lottery ball thing start happening tonight where people start getting numbers. They haven't done that in a while. I would really enjoy seeing a big freaking thing back there with balls in it that they're just rolling and people pulling out numbers and maybe fighting over numbers and all that kind of stuff, because we have nothing else lined up for the show tonight that seems actually interesting.
Lesnar and Daniel Bryan are both scheduled to be there, right?
Yes, Lesnar and Daniel Bryan are supposed to be there. Daniel Bryan is on the docket as far as if you go to WWE's website and look at the who's going to be on the show. Daniel Bryan's on there. The official website for the arena is obviously promoting Bryan to be there tonight, but WWE is not promoting Bryan to be there tonight, so you can probably expect him to do a run-in at some point and be some sort of little surprise angle. I don't know what they're going to do with Lesnar. Probably some kind of stare down with Cena and with Rollins. But let's talk about Rollins. Let's talk about Cena. The 5-point preview for tonight obviously said that you'll have Cena. Who else will be punished tonight by the Authority? And is Cena's attention span with the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match coming up on the 25th now detoured because the Authority fired Ryback, Dolph Ziggler, and Eric Rowan last week on Raw? Like I said earlier in the show, originally Cena was supposed to bring back one of these guys, and of course it would alienate the other two, whoever he picked. But they're not promoting that anymore, so I don't know if that's even going to happen on the show. But this whole Rollins, Lesnar, and Cena thing, they've got to do more to build the storyline up this week, correct? Like, I mean, what do we have on deck here that they can do that won't be absolutely useless?
You mean in terms of with Rollins and Cena?
Yeah, like what can they do to help build this title match into something that people want to see?
Look, I think they're probably banking on this point that people will care just because Brock Lesnar's in it, and the fact that he hasn't wrestled in what seems like forever and a half, that now he's going to be in the triple threat match where he could realistically lose the title. And I know a lot of us are thinking, he's going to headline WrestleMania as the champion, but the fact that Seth Rollins is now in there kind of throws a little bit of a kink in the armor, because not only is Rollins a third man, but he also has that Money in the Bank briefcase, and you could always say that maybe Cena pins Rollins, Lesnar does a post-match attack, and then Rollins pins Cena with the Money in the Bank. So there's a lot of different factors heading into this match, but in terms of how they build this towards WrestleMania, towards the Royal Rumble, based on Friday Night SmackDown this past week, you're throwing Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose into the hat there as well. Especially the Authority wants to maybe take out some, aggression on them. So we'll probably see Rollins involved in some sort of a match with Reigns and Ambrose tonight.
What do you think, B-Song?
Yeah, we'll probably just get unfortunately, we'll probably get the Lesnar, Cena, Rollins storyline just continued to be like intertwined with the Authority because they're back. One of the reasons I know it's probably going to come down to the finish, which is why Rollins was added, but he was also added because Cena's now basically feuding with the Authority while he's also feuding with Brock Lesnar. So it wouldn't make much sense for Cena to be on there, going at it with the Authority, and then you have Brock Lesnar who will be there now 2 or 3 straight weeks, I think, for once. So it doesn't make sense for him to have like these two feuds. So they'll probably concur with each other. I don't know necessarily what they can do to make this match like sell more. Like Walter said, Lesnar himself really sells it, but I would love to see them kind of have Rollins kind of continue to tease that he's, this Paul Heyman guy, that he, Lesnar, and Heyman are in cahoots.
By the way, I just want to say something. I want to make a little bit of a declaration here because I'm going to be gathering everyone's Royal Rumble picks in the next coming weeks, but I know the belief amongst the IWC right now is that there's no way in hell that Roman Reigns isn't winning the Royal Rumble, and there's no way in hell that we're not going to get Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. I have completely jumped off of that bandwagon. I am under this belief now, and I know everyone's going to think I'm crazy, that Daniel Bryan is really going to win the Royal Rumble, and we are going to get Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and we can talk about that later. But as far as Reigns is concerned, I think the way that when you go into WrestleMania and everyone's worried about the reaction that he's going to get, if he's ready or not, if you want to build him as this face and you're not going to get a heel turn from who he's going to be facing, I think at WrestleMania you do Roman Reigns versus John Cena. And I reported today at WrestlingRumors.net that during the Memphis Grizzlies and Phoenix Suns game on the weekend, they were promoting in Memphis at the main event of Fastlane, the pay-per-view between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. They might be doing John Cena and Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins in the Big Show, and that could be somewhat of a tease that, we've seen in the past WrestleMania opponents teaming up at the pay-per-view before it, like when they did Batista and Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels and John Cena, for example. Right. I think WrestleMania would be the perfect time if you want to do kind of like a symbol passing of the torch, John Cena versus Roman Reigns, and I'm going with that, until WrestleMania.
And it's not a bad idea, but it's one of those things where the only reason I haven't jumped off that bandwagon is they've given me no reason to, and they've given me no viewpoint that this is going to change. Now, for me, it seemed like on SmackDown they threw Dean Ambrose back with Roman Reigns. Now they're trying to, reestablish Roman Reigns as, the big face that doesn't need any help, and then they throw Dean Ambrose, who was super hot before feuding with Bray Wyatt, back into the mix, and now he needs help, and here comes Dean Ambrose. I don't understand their logic outside of they do. What that shows me is that we're probably going to see Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns again tonight as a team in some way, shape, or form. And to me, that screams they're not confident in Roman Reigns being by himself. And if the main event of Fastlane is going to be a tag match, to me, that screams the same thing. Now, does that mean Daniel Bryan's going to win the Royal Rumble? I don't know. It's a dangerous thing to put Daniel Bryan back in the Royal Rumble and have Roman Reigns win, especially if you have Roman Reigns eliminate him. That can't happen. Obviously, we know that cannot happen. Or else you're going to have Bautista all over Roman Reigns, and it's going to be bad. But where they go from here, I don't know. That's been one of the things that's been refreshing about this period is that if they do switch things up now that Daniel Bryan's back and Bad News is back and you have all these other people returning, you don't know who's going to win the Royal Rumble now, which makes that exciting. Outside of we know what they were wanting to do last summer, and that was put Reigns in that position and move forward. Reigns has not been the character that they wanted him to be. I mean, you have Vince McMahon writing scripts for him where he says suffering succotash. At least the man was smart enough to go off script, look at the camera, and troll the fans and give a wink and say, obviously that was stupid and I shouldn't have been saying it. But I don't know why these guys aren't literally just throwing. If Vince is the one that's saying, and this is the different dynamic, and this is what sucks right now with a 70-year-old man running the company that's lost all touch with what fans want to see. Is that this guy is going on podcasts and trying to say face like with Stone Cold Steve Austin and say, no, I still have my finger on the pulse of what the fans want. I still know what they want to see. I still know the stars that they want to see pushed. He obviously says Cesaro shouldn't be one of them, which is what's crazy if you look at this time last year. But he also says that that these superstars that are being put in these positions need to go out there and grab the brass rings. They need to step it up, is what he said. Then you have people like John Cena and going on Twitter and saying, yeah, y'all need to step it up. And I'm sitting there going, you're not giving them the opportunity to step up, because if it's me and I'm one of these superstars that's being put in these positions, I'm Roman Reigns, and I know that this script that you just wrote and handed to me is going to make me look a stupid cartoon character that you're trying to put in this superhero mode, like make me look like freaking Superman. I'm saying Superman's catchphrases one week. The next show, I'm saying the catchphrase from a stupid cartoon duck from Looney Tunes. Now it's why aren't they just crumpling up the scripts that they're being handed and saying whatever the hell they want to say anyway? Like, wouldn't that be going out and stepping it up? Just go out there and start saying what you want to say and start connecting organically to the fans. I don't understand why they're not doing this. Is it fear that because I think that the issue is that if you listen to CM Punk's podcast from Thanksgiving, this is what it seems to be. These guys want to go out there and say whatever the heck they want to say. But the issue is, if they go out there, say what they want to say, and try to get over organically, they're going to get stifled because they didn't read what was written for them, and then they're not going to get anything written for them anymore, and then they're off the show. So it's this double standard and this dichotomy that they're in, where if I say what I want to say and try to get over organically, the fans will start loving me, but then they're going to start taking me off the show, or be pissed at me and start punishing me. So then they're not going to be able to see me anymore, and then I'm going to lose that growth. You can't, I want to hear your guys' opinions on this. Is this a good way to do business? Because at this point, it seems like it's Vince's prerogative to make Roman Reigns look like a cartoon superhero when it's making him get less over than Vince thinks that it's than what's happening. I don't understand what this dichotomy is all about, but it seems to me that if he went out there, said what he wanted to say, and was a badass in the ring, he would get over, and now it's one of these things where he's having to say this stupid stuff. It's obvious that he's not a good actor, and he's not good at remembering things and spitting them out in a way that when people write it for him, like when he's talking normally in interviews, and when he's same thing with Cesaro, same thing with Sheamus. When they're talking in interviews where they're being able to talk by themselves, they're entertaining. But when they're given scripts on Monday nights and on Friday nights, almost Thursday nights, it's bullcrap and it's stupid. So I don't understand like this dichotomy of where we are. What do you guys think these superstars need to do to be able to step up and grab these brass rings?
Well, I think they shouldn't have this fear, especially someone like Roman Reigns. I mean, we highly think that he's been hand-chosen to be the one to defeat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31. He's their golden boy for the future. If he goes out there, he did kind of like with that wink and then him saying, oh, that was tough to say about the stupid suffer and succotash thing. That's a bit of his charisma showing up. That's a bit of him, kind of breaking the fourth wall. Guys need to do that. I mean, there aren't that many CM Punks out there. I mean, look at how Punk got over by kind of, going against the real-life authority. Someone like Roman Reigns really needs to do that. I mean, he's this hand-chosen golden boy that if he goes against the grain, what are they going to do? They're actually going to, take his spot away? They're not going to do that. People like him need to go against the grain. That way maybe you'll eventually have people that don't have to read scripts from Vince McMahon or any of these 24 writers.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, what WWE would do is that they would give kind of every superstar who has to cut a promo kind of like a bullet point list of, hey, we want you to cover A, B, and C. Go out there and say it however you will. I wouldn't do that for everyone on the roster, but for the guys that you have faith in who can go out there and cut a promo for 5 to 6 minutes, sure, you do that. And if you don't trust some of these mid-card guys, some of these lower-card guys, then you write their promos. But with Roman Reigns, it comes off as so forced. And I know we saw like an internet meme created on Friday Night SmackDown when he broke the fourth wall and started winking at the fans. I thought that was really corny. I thought that was really stupid. Made him look like kind of an ass because it is saying, yeah, I'm reading this crap and I can't stand on my own 2 feet. I have to do this. And most of the superstars who do get over to a higher degree are the ones who just say, screw it. And that's why CM Punk was so popular.
Right.
And what Alex was referring to with Roman Reigns being the golden boy, I think what WWE's big problem is that they start forcing some of these guys down our throats. And when the guys that the IWC and the WWE universe starts rooting for organically, like the Dolph Ziglers and the Daniel Bryans of the world, it's because they're going against what WWE wants. And sometimes we like that. And with Roman Reigns, we're heading into WrestleMania. He's the obvious favorite to get into the main event. He's not as disliked as like when Batista won the Royal Rumble and they had to basically switch everything at the last second and put Bryan in there. But Roman Reigns is still kind of teetering on that John Cena-esque, fringe where half of the crowd likes him and half of the crowd realizes what's going to happen with him and they're just not a fan of it. So I've said several times on the show, I think Roman Reigns should have always been one of those guys who just didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. And if you guys remember the first Shield promo that they ever did, that interview with Michael Cole, where one of his lines was like, when I have something to say, I'll say it. And I thought that was perfect. That's what I wanted him to be for the foreseeable future. But then they gave him a microphone, and he just started butchering so many of his promos that now my faith and my confidence in him moving forward is not as high as it probably should be.
I agree completely, but I really want to hit on what B-Song said because it's one of those things where CM Punk was on his way out legitimately and didn't care what he said. And I'm like, what's it going to take for one of these superstars that knows they still have a year or two or more on their contracts to just not care and say whatever the heck they want to say? Because that was his motivation. He was there from 2006 to 2011. For 5 years, he did exactly what they told him to do. Okay, did exactly what they told him to do. He rode the side of a freaking car with a fake Tommy gun. He did everything else that they told him to do. He grabbed some brass rings when he was told to be a heel. He got out there and he did whatever he had to do to be the most hated guy in the company. It worked. He proved that he could do commentary, but he still went by the book. And then when it was, well, F this company on Twitter, which is exactly what he said, and everybody was like, whoa, what? And then it was, I'm leaving. I can say whatever the heck I want to say. And Vince said, you're getting some eyes on you from saying whatever you want to say. Here's a microphone. Do a work shoot. It got to the point where he was saying whatever he wanted to say. It blew up the freaking internet. It blew up the media. And then it was, holy crap, everybody's looking at him. We need to sign this guy again and keep him here because he's done something to make himself a superstar. Triple H himself has said that's your Austin 316 moment when you sat down there and said whatever you want to say. So what's it going to take for these guys that still have contracts for multiple years that are being pushed to just not care enough to say whatever they want to say? That's the question, because that's what it's going to take to get these guys over. And that's what it's always taken, is growing some nuts and doing something out of the ordinary to be the guy that the fans want to see you do. Now, Daniel Bryan did that specifically with a comical character in Team Hell No, but he backed it up with his wrestling every single week. He was the best wrestler every single week, doing 6-man tags, doing these matches with big-name guys and being amazing in the ring to where the fans wanted to see him succeed. No one in the back thought that Daniel Bryan would be championship material at any point in time as far as the guy leading the company. They still don't see him that way, no matter what happened this past year. Like, that was a fluke to them, and him getting hurt was a reset button. Well, we don't have to put him back in that position again. Except for the last 2 times he's been on TV, the fans have acted like, here's our main event guy back again, and I want to see him succeed again. So the question now is, what do we have to do to get people to step outside the box and not care about getting fired, about getting punished? And that's where we are.
I just think this is a different era in wrestling where guys are just too afraid to do it, and they've seen some of these guys that have gotten over, like Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler, and the fact that they got over organically, and WWE kind of shut down their pushes. And they did do that with Daniel Bryan for a little bit, if you guys remember, when he put himself with the Wyatt family thing. And, if it wasn't for the fans just saying, screw this, we're going to cheer for him anyway, and then that massive pop he got in the steel cage, which I still watch, a dozen times a week, because I think that's why I like professional wrestling. But now, WWE is so... they nitpick with all of these little things. They write these scripts, and guys go out there, and they're not being themselves, and they're not being spontaneous because they have a legitimate reason to be afraid. They've seen it happen so many times before where guys are like this, and then all of a sudden they do something that WWE isn't happy with, and they go back on the downswing. You could even make the case that happened with Cesaro to a degree.
Totally. Absolutely agree.
Another big problem with that too is the guys that could get away with going off against the grain are guys like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, but they just have stuff to lose. If Roman Reigns goes out there and breaks his script, he can only hurt himself. He's already at the top spot. WWE already has all its faith put in him, so he really doesn't have a motivation to go against the grain, only to better himself, because his spot's not going to change. He's already like this golden boy, like I keep saying. There's no motivation for the top guys that can get away with it to actually go up against the script.
Yep, and that's the sad realization where we are. There's 26+ writers, including Vince McMahon, that are delegating every single thing that people do, that people say, and if they don't do what people write for them and they don't do what they're told to do, they get punished for it, and that's the issue. Look at NXT. Look at how over the NXT characters are getting on a weekly basis. I mean, I know one of my friends now that he only watches NXT, doesn't watch the main roster anymore, and I'm like, well, I understand why. It's the product that's worth watching right now. You have one writer, and that filters through Dusty Rhodes and Triple H. That's it. And those guys can go out there and take liberties and do whatever the heck they want because it's considered a developmental territory, and then this is when they're supposed to try things like that. But I wish that we had that kind of leeway on the main roster, because I absolutely love watching NXT every single week. I'm stoked to see Zayn versus Neville again on Wednesday. Like, I'm looking forward to that. Like, that's something that I'm actually looking forward to it. So I don't know why there's just so much fear on the main roster. But when you have people like, you have Adam Rose, who's supposed to be this new heel Adam Rose, but he still has the Rosebuds with him, and you still have the whole bunny thing happening, and I just don't get why that's a segment on TV when you have all these different guys that could step up and be really, really good. Why was Darren Young on the show Monday in the ring, but that was the only time you saw him? Like, why is this guy not back in the ring if he's supposed to be this new aggressive guy in the ring? Like, I don't get it. I want, like, this guy's back from his injury. What's happening? Why was he in the ring but never used on the show?
Well, it kind of makes you wonder why WWE is so reluctant to just catch lightning in a bottle. Like, when they were doing the whole Daniel Bryan push, and fans were cheering for him nonstop, even in situations where he wasn't even in the segment. Why wouldn't they just be in the back like, wow, this is really working. Let's push this guy because fans obviously want to pay to see him. With Roman Reigns, it's like, okay, fans are kind of into him, but we're going to shove him down our throats because we want him in that spot. Yet the last 2 times we've seen a guy like Daniel Bryan on WWE television, both times he's gotten pops that have surpassed anything we've seen from Roman Reigns in the past year. Yep. So why is it so difficult for them to say, well, okay, Roman Reigns, he might be our guy for the future, but for right now, fans want Daniel Bryan, and we'll give them Daniel Bryan.
Even without Daniel Bryan, it was guys like Dolph Ziggler. I mean, Dolph Ziggler and Mizdow are the 2 most over guys in the company right now.
Yeah.
And you fake fired one of them last week on Monday Night Raw.
But, like, why? I mean, ratings aren't consistently strong. You know, buy rates are going down. The WWE Network isn't where they want to be. Why not just say, let's give the fans what they want because they're the paying customers. We're not right all the time.
They don't care about us until we stop giving them money. Simple as that.
And they remember, like when Vince and Stone Cold Steve Austin were talking, Vince actually thinks that this is a success right now.
Yeah, he totally does.
How delusional.
I don't know. It always just makes me go back to what CM Punk said, and it sounds awful, but it's like, what will happen when Vince McMahon finally dies? He'll be 70 this year. Like, what's going to happen when he finally kicks the bucket? What's going to happen with, like, are we going to get a structure like NXT? Is Triple H going to can 25 writers and just move 1 or 2 or 3 back into that spot and try to have consistency? I mean, look at what Vince is doing to tag teams like the Ascension that's coming up from NXT, who were a dominant, you know, smash mouth tag team in NXT, and they come up and they're a joke, and they're getting the ultimate bad guy treatment on Raw, where they're freaking coming in and squashing jobbers from local indie circuits for 45 seconds, and then you have your commentary team destroying them. Like, they cut this promo. Yeah, they should not have said what they said about Demolition and Legion of Doom. I guarantee you they said that because people like us. I know myself and the Wrestling Rumors account on Twitter, I have said from day one when the vignette started, oh, look, they're trying to make the Ascension the aborted stepchild of the Demolition and the Legion of Doom. They come out and they have to address the Legion of Doom and Demolition on Monday Night Raw. What they said seemed like disrespect from a lot of old talent. I mean, freaking Animal responded to it on his Facebook page and had to delete it because of what he said. But, you know, all these guys took it as disrespect because Hawk isn't here, and so there's no money to draw from what they said about, you know, that they would take down LOD because LOD can't face them anymore. So a lot of these guys took it as disrespect, and even JBL and Booker T were and it had to have been Vince that told him to say it, because JBL literally just says what Vince tells him to say. So it had to be JBL that it had to be Vince that told JBL to bury these guys on Monday night, because that's exactly what JBL did. You have your heel commentator who's supposed to be supporting these heel tag teams and these heel characters. Your heel commentator, I mean, just literally buried them as soon as the match was over. Like, so they couldn't even carry the Road Warriors bags. Like, they're not good enough to even carry the Road Warriors bags. And you have Booker T chime in and knock them down too. So I'm so confused at what they're trying to do with this tag team that should have come up with this ominous tone and thought, and honestly, they're made to be cartoons instantly, and I think that's the realm in which we're going back to, where in the Monday Night Wars, Vince McMahon, I've said this since the beginning of last year, we're going back into 1994, into 1995. 1995 was the worst year for wrestling, period, in both companies. Everything was so cartoonish and comic booky that it just was, you had to have the realism start in 96 to kill it. And that's when we got the biggest era in wrestling ever. And that's where we are. They're going back to the comic book cartoon characters. Roman Reigns is supposed to be made into this Superman character. You have all these guys that I mean, they think Dean Ambrose, he's the crazy guy, so it doesn't matter how many times he loses or wins. It just doesn't. He hasn't won in a Coon's age. Like, you haven't seen him win in forever. And then you have people like, people like the Ascension, who are now these villains from, freaking, what's the race car cartoon where, like, Muttley and Dastardly, whatever his name is, were freaking racing these other cars. and hurting each other, and they're the villains, and it's obvious that they're made up to be these superhero villains, and it's like, why? Why are we going back to that? Is Mantar going to debut tonight? That's my question. Like, is the next Mantar going to debut? Like, I don't understand why we're digressing back to this era of wrestling, when in the Monday Night War, Vince and Stephanie and everybody else that has a say in the direction of this company are saying that was the worst era in wrestling, and we had lost touch with what our fans wanted. You're back there again. What are you going to do to change it? I don't understand. You're ruining, like, you're bringing up this talent and then ruining them. I don't know what to do. I don't know what they have to do. But it's got to, when you had the Ascension come out in their new paint and their new garb, and then they come out to this music, this hardcore music that's supposed to build them up into this gothic tag team of destruction. You have the camera angle come up, and then they groan and grunt like idiots walking down the ring when they shouldn't say anything until they get in the ring. And then they get the microphone, and they're not great on the microphone. They're told to say what they said, and then they get buried, and they do squash matches. It's not good. I don't know what to do. I don't know what they're supposed to do either.
I had such high hopes for the Ascension, and one of the recurring jokes on this show has been, why Walter always wants the Ascension to debut? When are they going to show up? And within 2 weeks, WWE has completely ruined them. And they should have never given them face paint. They should have never given them a microphone. Like, the tag team division needed the Ascension. They needed some fresh blood in that division, and they could have been a dominant powerhouse, and they still could be. I mean, there's still time, but the way this thing has started has just been a complete disaster, and it makes me have worries about in the future when they start bringing some of these NXT guys up. I mean, we're always, on pins and needles. When is Kevin Owens going to come up? When is Sami Zayn going to come up? How about Adrian Neville?
Neville's going to be Mighty Mouse, for crying out loud. Like, I don't understand.
We keep hearing about all of these gimmick changes. It's like, well, maybe they should just stay in NXT because that seems to be where they can prosper. And when they get to the main roster, they're put into the hands of Vince McMahon, and they're completely ruined, and we don't care about them. I mean, Adam Rose is a perfect example. He could have been something cool. I'm not saying he's going to be a main eventer, but with Santino out of the picture, he could have been a decent comedy act. The dancing fans could have been into it. They butchered him by putting him with the damn bunny and making them feud together. Like, it was just ludicrous. And now with the Ascension, it's like, what you said with JBL burying them, it's like, how do you come back from that?
How do you come back from that?
Look at the people who have succeeded, though. You have the Shield, Rollins, Ambrose, and Reigns. That was, as CM Punk claimed in his podcast, that was his idea. And then you have Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt doesn't read his promos from any of those writers or Vince McMahon. The guys that they try and build themselves from NXT, they simply don't work out. They're never going to work out until they adapt to the product.
And you talk about the Shield, like, they got over from being a destructive NWO style stable that came in and were a lot not being a. They had a fresh promo in the back with the camera, holding their own camera, and it was fresh and it was different and it was grungy and it was realistic and it was that kind of mode. And when the Wyatts came up, it was the same kind of thing. And then within a year, the Wyatts are split, and you're having Bray Wyatt face the guy that he fixed and sent on the world on SmackDown. 2 weeks ago, you had Eric Rowan versus Bray Wyatt. Made 0 sense. 0 sense. Like, I don't understand how they can get to that from point A to point B when they didn't address there's no issue between Bray Wyatt and Eric Rowan. He fixed him and sent him out on the world. Like, I understood the whole Eric Rowan and Luke Harper thing because one was on one team and one was on the other. But where do you get Bray Wyatt facing these guys again? They never faced off, and there's no storyline to go along with it, so there was no point.
Just another match.
And now there's rumor, but it's a good way to kill your initial storyline with them. Like, it kills it. Now the rumor is that Dean Ambrose may turn heel going into WrestleMania season, and that could happen tonight. Is the rumor? I mean, you're going to see Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose likely as a team facing Seth Rollins and Big Show. And what may come out of that is Dean Ambrose turning heel. What do you guys think about that? To me, that's a joke. To me, that's one of the worst things they could possibly do. But we don't have enough. Like, looking at it from a card standpoint, you don't have enough heels for WrestleMania right now. So you need another heel, which is why everybody's been saying bring back Sheamus as a heel.
But you have Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt, Triple H is going to have a match, and then Rusev. Those are your 5 heels. Your main heels heading into WrestleMania. So is it really an urgent thing to turn Dean Ambrose as a bad guy at this point?
Depends on what they do. If you look at it this way, if you look at the fact that if we go off of what you recommended, if you go off, you say Lesnar is going to face Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have Reigns and Cena, which is something that no one really has really said or thought up, because it's unlikely to do a face versus face kind of thing. This isn't The Rock versus John Cena, so this is something different there. Then you have Seth Rollins and Randy Orton, possibly, and then you have Rusev versus someone, and you have Dean Ambrose versus someone. You have Dolph Ziggler versus someone. Who are they facing?
Well, I mean, some of those guys are going to be in the Battle Royal if they do bring back the Andre the Giant thing, right?
Right, but you're looking at main events of Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Roman Reigns, and Sting versus Triple H,
and Undertaker, Wyatt,
and Bray Wyatt, Undertaker. Yeah. That is not a card that's going to sell WrestleMania very well.
But WrestleMania sells WrestleMania. They could book anything and people are going to buy WrestleMania.
That's a big ass stadium that they're trying to fill.
It's not Cowboy Stadium.
It's not Cowboy Stadium, which will be the next year, which is when they're likely going to do Sting Undertaker if he can go. But
they're putting a lot on people caring that Sting is going to wrestle and the Undertaker is going to come back, and that might be a selling point. And then Lesnar, his last match with WWE, anything other than that, I mean, they could throw anything together at this point. When I said Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar, I just think that storyline is too perfect not to pass up. You have the champion who never lost the belt, who's coming off a serious injury, going up against the unstoppable force in Brock Lesnar. How could you not book that at this point? And if you have to switch things around with the undercard, then so be it.
I mean, I don't even know what they're gonna do. Like, because then you have this monster heel in Rusev who's never been pinned, who has a title on him, and has to have some kind of match. The only thing I can think of is that you're gonna have like he and Dolph Ziggler go head to head.
Which you've seen on Raw several times.
We might see Ryback face him just because he got fired. He's not going to face him at the Rumble. They look like they were building to that. I mean, they were building a legitimate program between the two, and now it's got scrapped because of that dumb firing.
You know what? That's a good point, because they're certainly not doing it at the Rumble, and I doubt they'll do it at Fastlane. Maybe we do get Rusev versus Ryback at WrestleMania.
Which is another mediocre match.
But that's all they can do at this point, right? I mean, we talk about how, well, WrestleMania is like super awesome because we have literally no idea what they're going to be doing. That could also be a bad thing too, you know.
No, I didn't say WrestleMania is awesome because we have no idea what they're doing. I'm saying the Rumble is going to be interesting to watch. Like, it makes me want to watch the Rumble because we have no idea what's going on yet.
Right.
Like, that always leads to, okay, I'm excited to watch the Rumble because we have so many different options here. What are they going to pull the trigger and do? Now, if everything is super predictable coming out of January 25th, I mean, then if it is Reigns who wins the Royal Rumble and it is Lesnar who keeps his title against Rollins and Cena with the Money in the Bank in there as well, then we know what the card's going to be at WrestleMania. And then it's what does John Cena do? Because if you have Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, and you have Randy Orton in there somewhere with maybe Rollins, and you have Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, and you have Sting, Triple H, then what happens with John Cena? What happens with Rusev? What happens with these other guys that have been built up? Ryback and Rusev and all these guys that Ziggler, like these guys that have been put into a main event place, they're not there anymore. And they're all going to be in the freaking Andre the Giant Battle Royal?
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's going to be like the Ascension versus whoever the champions are, the Usos, maybe?
Yeah.
You know what I would love to see at WrestleMania? They're never going to do it because I think Reigns is going to win the Rumble. But if they were smart and they went with Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar, they should really do the match that they were planning to do to build up Reigns for months and months and months, and it got put off because he got injured. They should really look at doing Triple H versus Roman Reigns. It's a very good way to build him up. If you have him do that Brock Lesnar feud, there's a good chance you're just going to harm him more than anything. They should really look at bringing that match back. I know you would have to have Sting face somebody else, but you really shouldn't sacrifice your next top star for Sting.
See, I just noticed that Alex B. Song has changed its image to Sylvester the Cat because I didn't even notice, and I said that it was Daffy Duck, but it totally was Sylvester. Thanks.
It would have been smart, B. Song, but I think WWE really is set on doing separate Undertaker Sting matches and then having those two face off next year if they're of course healthy enough to do it. And then you can't do Triple H versus Reigns, although that's a logical thing to do.
But it definitely is a logical thing to do, and it should be happening at the Rumble or Fastlane. But I don't know if that's going to be feasible for them to do either.
It just can't. Like, WrestleMania 31 cannot be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. I don't care about the whole Money in the Bank thing and Seth Rollins possibly cashing in. If the main event of WrestleMania 31 is Reigns Lesnar, it's going to be an absolute disaster, and they are going to regret it so fast if they go ahead with that. I guarantee it.
If they do Reigns Lesnar as well and Rollins doesn't cash in, that crowd's going to go absolutely
if that
nuts.
show ends with Reigns holding the belt and confetti coming down from the sky,
Booze.
Oh my God,
Booze.
Screwed, and
He's going to get booed out of the building.
He may not deserve it. I mean, Roman Reigns isn't a joke, but my God, this is not the right time to be doing this.
And we're looking divas wise. You're looking at Paige versus Nikki Bella at frickin' WrestleMania, which hopefully Paige comes out of that thing with the championship because that girl is an actual wrestler.
No, that'll probably be at the Rumble. They need an undercard.
Yeah, but that should keep going because who are you gonna? If Paige wins at the Rumble, who are you gonna put her against after that?
You put all of them in the damn, like they did last year with that Invitational, or you do something stupid like Nikki versus Brie.
How'd they get back to that?
I don't know. Like,
answer me this, and we'll talk about this before we get out of here in the next 7 minutes. Answer me, why in the world would you have Bad News Barrett come back on Monday Night Raw, win the Intercontinental Championship from Dolph Ziggler, and then lose clean to Sin Cara on SmackDown, only so he can beat him up afterwards? Are we putting NXT Tag Team Champion Sin Cara in the Intercontinental Championship spot on the main roster when we haven't seen him on the main roster in upwards of 6 to 7 months? What logic is there for that?
That was more or less about the post-match attack, emphasizing that Bad News Barrett is mostly a heel. If they wanted to go about that, they should have had somebody more credible pin him, because Sin Cara, of course, in NXT with the Lucha Dragons, they could have had somebody like a bigger name defeat Bad News Barrett if they wanted to go that route. But then again, he won the title.
You know what? Like what? I don't understand.
The Intercontinental title it doesn't mean anything. Like, why are we surprised by this?
That's the suck part, though, is that Ziggler was building it back up, only for it to be a joke the next week, the same week.
Something you want to see from New Japan, like Wrestle Kingdom 9. The Intercontinental title actually means something, and it's just as important as the world title. In WWE, that couldn't be further from the truth.
It was getting there, and Ziggler literally was building that prestige back up.
Somewhat.
And then they throw it away with a Sin Cara victory on SmackDown, which half the world saw. Nobody else saw it.
They likely could have made the Ziggler-Barrett rematch at maybe WrestleMania like an actual legitimate upper mid-card match, but now it's just it boggles my mind that they would have Sin Cara beat Bad News Barrett clean, and before the match too, Barrett's like, "Oh, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble," and you have him lose immediately after.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the confusion, Acer. This is the confusion. This is why I even brought it up. Acer asked the question in the chat room. So with Sin Cara winning cleanly against Bad News Barrett in WWE logic, doesn't he have an Intercontinental Championship shot? He's right there in the #1 contender spot. Yeah.
We'll see that tonight, probably.
Oh,
he'll get his revenge.
Why?
Because he pinned him. That's how they're going to go about this.
I understand, but there's no logic in any of that whatsoever.
I'm not watching anything these days with WWE. It's like, why get... Like, remember, 2 weeks ago when we were, so excited about Monday Night Raw, and we're like, man, they're finally turning a corner, and then last week we're like, oh, it's just the same old
crap. By 9 o'clock, I wanted it to be over.
Yeah, it was terrible, and, anyone I even said on Twitter, if you're defending this crap, you're completely out of your damn mind.
You're nothing but a mark if you defend last week's episode. I'm sorry. You're a brainless WWE mark if you
bless your heart, Mick Foley. Mick Foley wrote on Twitter afterwards that people shouldn't have been so harsh on that final segment where they fired those 3 guys. Too many chair shots to the head. I don't know what you were on that night. I mean, no disrespect.
And that's what
you're crazy to think that was worthwhile.
And that's what everyone said to him on Twitter and on Facebook. And now he's taking a sabbatical from social media because he got attacked so hard for supporting that show.
Because he was wrong. He was completely wrong.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what we have to deal with tonight. If you want to see me post ridiculous pictures in response to what's happening on Twitter, you can follow us at WrestleRumors, and I'll be live tweeting during the show. Hopefully it won't be that awful. Nothing tells me that it's not going to be. But you have you have nothing really to look forward to on tonight's program. So, we'll see what happens. Daniel Bryan's going to be there. That's the only thing that you can really look forward to. And even us saying that goes to show where we are. Like, it's been that bad that and they're trying to push up Roman Reigns as this credible guy, and we're talking about the fact that the only thing worth watching is that Daniel Bryan's going to make some kind of appearance. He's not wrestling. He's going to be wrestling live on Thursday night, or not live, but he's going to be wrestling Thursday night when SmackDown moves. Like, that's his first match back. They're not going to have him wrestle tonight because then the draw for him to be wrestling on SmackDown as his return doesn't matter. Then there's no eyes watching Thursday night SmackDown. But with his return match being on Thursday night, you're actually going to have people watch. Like me, I don't watch SmackDown. We report the spoilers here on WrestlingRumors.net, so I read that. But I'm actually going to be watching SmackDown this week. Why? Daniel Bryan. So here comes the IWC back behind Daniel Bryan. We're going to actually see him. We're going to see a video for Randy Savage, which I'm excited about, and we're going to see Daniel Bryan. That's what I'm excited about tonight.
And the final thought, I mean, you just painted the picture right there, Doug. You need any more of a reason to see why Daniel Bryan needs to be in the main event of WrestleMania? There's your answer. You said it. I'm looking forward to seeing Daniel Bryan.
Yep.
No one says that about Roman Reigns.
Nope.
And not even Lesnar. Lesnar's on the show tonight. No one cares.
No, nobody cares. And he may or may not even have the belt with him. We'll see. You can follow Walter at Walter Sports. He would likely be tweeting about the Raptors game tonight, not even Raw. So if you want to follow anything about the Toronto Raptors, you can watch his hashtags of RTZ and see what happens. And then, of course, Glass Mode ALB, he'll be tweeting maybe about Raw, maybe not, but his language is always more colorful on Twitter, so check that out as well. And then, of course, you can follow me at Doug O'Mac or at WrestleRumors for live tweeting tonight. I'll probably be tweeting about both Raw and Oregon versus Ohio State because I'll be watching both. Enjoy the evening. If you watch Raw, try to get through it without killing someone in your family or yourself. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching.